What is up, everybody? I am going to progress that we are live now. This is the PGA DFS First Look Show with myself, Jason Rouslin, and my two co-hosts, Sal Vetri and Geoff Ulrich. Thank you guys so much for joining me this week. We've got a week where I'm probably the most excited about, even though we just played on this course. We just saw it. We get Tiger Woods. We get the best in the world back here. And I've been a Tiger fan. That's why I got into golf so long ago. So it's been 5 months. Crazy enough. We'll get into that in a little bit. But first, I want to bring in my co-host, and we'll start with Sal since he's got a little bit of a story on the playoff. Sal, what's up, man? You were just briefly telling us before we came on the air what happened with the playoff, but give us your rundown of the week and what you're looking forward to this week.
Yeah, I thought the week was fantastic. I felt pretty good about. I did MME this week, and then I ended up I usually do like a main lineup for 3 max single entry, throw that into pretty much everything. That lineup did well, and it had JT in it. It was more of a stars and scrubs at Cantley and JT. So Cantley's big Sunday helped, and then I was like, okay, this is a decent lineup. It's looking better now. JT in the playoff, a win from him would have ended up, and I thought I clinched it after he hit that eagle putt, I think like on 15. And I thought I clinched it at that point. Yeah, it ended up being like a $4,000 swing if he won or not. So every single hole in the playoff, I'm sitting there not knowing the exact amounts, but just rooting hard for him. He hits the 50-footer, like the emotional roller coaster that I went on from thinking that he's done, right? He's in a situation where he's got to like 2-putt for par at that point. Morikawa can possibly win it. So he hits that. So then Morikawa lands it. Another birdie putt for the win on the next hole. And then he ends up losing. I didn't even care like 5 minutes after, which is crazy because there's just so much adrenaline in me. I had to get like out of the house. I went to the mall and bought some new shoes because I just had to get out. But yeah, it was, I can't even remember like a better finish that I was watching and actually got to watch it live, thankfully, for the stream. So yeah, no, it was awesome. The roller coaster ended up still being a fine week, just could have been a lot better.
Yeah, it brought back, I had pretty much no irons in the fire, I got to be honest with you, but I still was glued to the television or glued to the stream, yeah. I should say. It was riveting. It was great. It's why we love sports, right? To see this type of stuff happen. I mean, the yelp that JT yelled after he made that 50-footer was great. And just to see Morikawa with just ice in his veins, just step up and drain it right on top of him. It was golf at its best. So, Geoff, I know you followed me down the Spieth rabbit hole last week. Did you have anything to save your week, or was he the demise of it and a few other guys, of course?
I think I dragged you with me, didn't I? If I recall the show.
You might have, yeah.
Look, I will own that mistake 100%. We can talk about my lineup. That was probably, just from a lineup perspective, probably the dumbest week for me of since the restart. I mean, it happens. Sometimes you just got to like make some mistakes before you break a few eggs. But anyways, yeah, no. I'm part of me is glad I didn't have like a sweat like that, because that was the playoff was just ridiculous. I mean, it was ridiculous to watch, going through the swings. I mean, just going from 2, like even before the playoff, JT making the eagle. I mean, I would have, if I had money on JT, I would have been like bad, just sitting back, like counting my money at that point. And the guy bogeys 2 holes coming in. And look, it is a tough finishing stretch. And I'm not saying he necessarily choked away, although you would expect him to close a lot there. But yeah, what an insane finish from a sweating DFS betting perspective. I definitely didn't have any irons in this fire. Like you, Jason, but yeah, man. I mean, like I enjoyed watching that on Sunday. And it was nice that it started early too, because it felt like you just had the whole day after. So I wish golf would start that early every Sunday.
Me too. Honestly, I wonder if maybe they'll think about doing that when the NFL comes back. I mean, it's something to talk about if they can figure it out with the silly TV contracts. There is a ton of money to be made, because I know there were a lot of people watching that stream. They could certainly capitalize on it. And then they don't, have to give it up like, Fox gave up the United States Open because they don't want to give up football for a weekend. Crazy enough, but that's just what happens, I guess, in the world of money. So we're going to get into a little bit more of JT and Morikawa in just a second. But before we do, I want to thank our sponsor of the show, SuperDraft. So the future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. And sometimes lineup freedom for me isn't the greatest thing, because I get to put all my favorites in, and sometimes my favorites miss the cuts. But if you don't have to worry about playing my favorites, and you can use your own fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want to build your very own dream team, countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offering contests in PGA, NASCAR, and MMA, soon to be NBA, MLB, and NFL, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft using promo code Awesemo10. It's $10 free on your first deposit of 10 or more, and $20 total free on your first of 100 or more. download in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. All right, I'm going to start off with Morikawa, top 10 in the world. So let's first start off with that question, okay? And then I want you to tell me what impressed you the most. I've got a couple of stats that I've read. I read a great article put out by PGA Tour's Sean Martin. If you're into stats and into that type of stuff, check this out. I mean, Morikawa, it's great. But Geoff, let's start with you. Is Morikawa a top 10 player in the world? I know the OWGR says he's number 13, but doesn't have enough qualifying starts to really put him in the top 10. Second, what is the most impressive thing about last week to you?
So just in relation to Morikawa, you mean the most impressive thing? Yeah. So I'd just say the way he handled the greens. I mean, this is his first time around Memorial, and I know they played them a little bit slower, but for him to go out there and improve his putting that much, and look, he just about blew that putt on the 18th. Like, oh my God, what a disaster that would have been. Like that was so close to just rimming out. But still, overall, you look at his putting stats for the week, it was pretty insane. This is kind of what people have been waiting for. I mean, we all know at this point, he's like maybe the best iron player in the world. But if he starts to flash some consistency with the putter, and he looked fine around the greens too at a lot of points last week. So, yeah, I mean, top 10 player in the world. I mean, like Adam Scott's in the top 10 right now. I mean, I'd definitely take Morikawa over him. There is obviously, there's a ton of young talent right now. Schauffele is just outside the top 10 as well. I would still probably take a guy like Cantlay over Morikawa just for the rest of the season. But like, it's really close. I mean, he definitely deserves to be in that back end top 10 of the world for me right now. Like I said, I mean, people were waiting to see this type of consistency the rest of his game. We saw it this week.
Absolutely correct. Sal, how about you? Are you on the same wavelength, or are you not quite ready to give top 10 Morikawa?
Yeah, I mean, I think I am. And I think, either right outside the top 10 or right in it right now. But, I mean, you've had 2 playoffs for the guy. He's been competing, just misses his first cut. So, yeah, I think he's out there. Like Reed is still hovering around the top 10. So if I'm trying to relate him to players like that, the way he's been playing for the last 2 months since returning is definitely up there. The way he was playing right before that starting to come on, kind of like how Hovland is now. So, yeah, I think it's fine. The thing that surprised me the most was the putting. I think it's the best putting performance we've seen since he's been on tour from him. And now that's 2 out of his last 4 contests. He's now broken his record for the best in like his 24 short starts to his career. But if that starts going at all, then you're going to continue to see him just being there on Sundays. So that was pretty impressive. And then especially just how it happened with the pressure on him when it came to some of those putts, obviously in the playoff, and then just really down the stretch, being down 3 with 3 holes to play and just kind of staying composed, being in it and going out there and hunting birdies was pretty impressive to me for a young kid.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree with pretty much everything you guys are saying. I've loved this kid for a year now. When he came out at the RBC Canadian, I tried to play him as much as I could then until everybody caught up, and it paid off. But it really paid off in the betting markets when he first came onto the scene for me. That's where, and of course this week mitigated something. Well, the stat that I wanted to bring up, absolutely insane. On the par 5 4th hole, he hit 2 inside of 4 feet from 230 plus yards. Okay, no other golfer did it once in the week, and it's only happened 10 times since 2003. It's in this article that Sean Martin wrote for PGA Tour. That stat blew me away when I went and looked at it. Just totally insane. Also, from 175 to 200, this guy is absolutely dynamite. He resembles Tiger Woods when Tiger Woods was in his prime, absolutely dominating that area. It didn't matter if Tiger had a wedge in his hand or a 5-iron in his hand. He was putting it way closer than everybody else. Morikawa is along those same lines. I'm excited to see, Tiger at his best at this age and Morikawa go up on an iron showdown, because that would just be so fun to watch. All right, let's move on to the JT lays up and more Workday for our next topic here. We mentioned JT, and one thing that I noticed on all 4 of the playoff holes, JT hit 3-wood off the tee and Morikawa hit driver off the tee. Morikawa was significantly by him, and actually, in fact, off the tee, except for one, JT was in trouble on every single time. I don't understand why he didn't pull out driver here. Do you think that cost him the win, Sal? Do you think it contributed factor to it?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I thought it was interesting how he went back to 3-wood after obviously the first playoff hole, just hitting it. I think it was into the bunker. He actually had the nice lie on it, but I guess you could say
on 18, he hit it into the bunker with the 3-wood, and then he went right back to it.
Right back to it.
even further right. That he still made a crazy putt, but still.
Yeah, he ended up being lucky with the lies that he got. Like it was fine where they ended up landing, and he got the crazy putt. So it might have ended up costing him. It just might just be confidence at that point. Morikawa was just to seem more confident in his driver. I think we would probably sense that a little bit just based on the way that they were playing coming in down the stretch those last 3 holes. So yeah, I guess he was just sticking with the read on it. Maybe he thought he could adjust something onto it, and it was the opposite. It just got even worse after the first playoff hole. So to me, it would probably just come down to confidence, and then just after that, I really don't know if it would end up costing him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he goes to driver on those holes this week after really, struggling with him. Geoff, did you notice that same thing, or did you think it was something else?
I think it was kind of weird. I mean, I kind of get it on the last hole regulation. You're just trying to find the fairway, and obviously all he needs is a par. So if he obviously hits the water with the driver, because there is that creek, and it is definitely in play. That really takes par out of the question. But even if he put it in the trap, at least he gives himself a shot at par. So I think I understand it more from the last hole in regulation. But once you get to the playoff, you're disadvantaging yourself. I mean, that's a weapon for Justin Thomas. He hits it further off the tee than Morikawa. So I'm not sure why, you don't be aggressive at that point. But again, I mean, I'm not in this player's head. It looked like a loss of confidence thing. He was playing defensive down the stretch. Obviously, bogeyed the 2 of the last 3 holes. But, I don't want to sit here and say things about Justin Thomas. He obviously had a read or something going on. So it did surprise me a bit as a viewer, though.
Yeah, me as well. All right, a couple of interesting facts from the week. Great call by Geoff on the show last week. Russ Henley. Russ Henley seems to have a little bit of a resurgence. He had a great ball striking week. He came in the top 10. Another one of Geoff's faves, though, Hideki Matsuyama, great ball striking week and just can't find the putter. Another outside the top. I think he even finished maybe outside the top 20. That was pretty terrible. Last one, Keegan Bradley led the field in ball striking. Does that make you guys interested this week? And then the last one, my biggest surprise, Chase Seifert. I mean, we were on him 2 weeks ago, Ben and I on our show, and I'm going to have to talk to Ben and see if he continued on him, but that was definitely a great showing by him. Sal, we'll go to you first on those 3 or 4 facts, or if you have any more.
Yeah, so I mean, for Keegan, it'll just come down to putting. It's crazy. He had to be bottom 5 in putting in that.
Yeah, no, he was the worst. He lost almost 8 strokes on the week. Yeah.
So he was the worst in putting. Yeah, it's crazy that they're just complete opposite. So yeah, I mean, I'll be interested in seeing after what he did just overall in the approach this week. Some really cheap guys with nice price points, or going forward with Keegan. But I would say the biggest surprise was it Monday qualifier? Is it Defoe? Is that how you pronounce it?
Jim Nantz pronounced it something totally different, and Jim Nantz is typically right about this stuff. I just don't remember exactly how he did it. Geoff, do you have another pronunciation here for us? Or?
I know. I don't ask me about player names pronunciation. I will get them wrong all the time. So whatever I say, it's probably the complete opposite.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so Defoe, he was the opposite of Keegan. He led the field, I believe, in putting. So that was surprising just coming out as a Monday qualifier. I was tracking it for the showdown, and you had to dig into all the data providers, and I have just an API that I use. I couldn't find his name on there, but then you had to really start digging into just find the guy's name to pop up for live stats at all. And you can see that he was just getting extremely hot the whole time with the putter.
Yep, absolutely. Geoff, anything to add to that?
No, but, Chase Seifert, obviously a dude I was kind of interested in. I didn't play him, but I kind of brought him up a little bit in one of my just GPP Fly articles. And I mean, I was expecting him to maybe play well. I was not expecting that. That was impressive. So, I'm probably not going to chase that or anything like that, chase, but that was definitely something that stuck out to me because I was very interested before pre-tournament. And that was just wow, where did this come from kind of thing?
Yep, for sure. All right, let's move on to our third topic, the DFS review, where I go over some interesting facts. I look at some of the DFS pros around the industry and how they did their lineups last week. So let's go into our first, where I'm going to review just the top 10 points in ownership real quickly. So on the point side, obviously Colin Morikawa, but Justin Thomas actually had more raw points there, as Morikawa had 135, Thomas 132, Hovland 119, another fantastic week. Gary Woodland putted his way to over 100 points. Ian Poulter did the exact same thing. The aforementioned Seifert at 100.5, and then Sam Ryder, Billy Horschel, Patrick Cantlay, and Jason Day. Finally playing Jason Day for our own Alex Baker paid off. I'll talk about that in a little bit in a little bit. And then ownership side, a couple of those guys that were in the top 10 on the points ended up on the top 10 ownership. So shows that DFS golf and the content providers and everything is doing pretty good to get all these guys up there. Cantlay, Woodland, Hovland, Morikawa were all in the top 10 ownership and all in the top 10 points. So a pretty good job there. All right, we're going to go through the Millionaire Maker. This is a great one here. I'll give Jordan a second behind the glass to pull up the Millionaire Maker lineup. This is another good one. Another single bullet takes down the Millionaire Maker. I just love it. I mean, the guy I know that came in second, he had 150 lineups, but he could not beat this one lineup that had a total ownership 47% this week, 49,800 on the salary. Obviously, when we got those two stats, nobody's going to duplicate it. He had the aforementioned Day and Poulter, but two interesting ones. And I'm going to go to Sal on this one. Rory Sabatini, 92.5. He shot +3 or +4 at the Rocket Mortgage. He's in your $200 lineup that we're going to see in a couple slides here. Talk about him in that lineup. That was definitely a pivotal play for him at 2.9%. Obviously, Charlie Hoffman was as well, which I have no idea where that one came from.
Yeah, so Sabs is somebody that I like. I think last week on the show, we were talking about the big salary drops. It obviously was a more loaded field last week, so he was probably naturally seeing a drop. But him missing the cut and playing poorly, it just dropped off the face of the earth. And he was terrible everywhere. Like, it was the approach play that really stunk for him, but he lost putting. So it was just a bad round. But before that, Rory was playing fine. I mean, the putter was fine like it normally was before that at Charles Schwab and RBC, the top 20 finishes. So I just went back to him. It was more of a pivot play to make my lineup unique. And to make his as well. I thought he was going to be higher owned than that, but yeah, he just came in mid sevens, like 2-3% owned. I thought it was a strong play. He came out, was fine with the putter, was fine around the green, and then the approach went right back to what it was doing. And right as the break started, and that's what you ended up getting. So I saw him as a pretty nice play in that range, not even like a pivot, but he just ended up being that.
Yeah, and Geoff, I totally get the Jason Day and Ian Poulter plays. Those make total sense at the price. And certainly their upside of what we've seen in the history. Charlie Hoffman, though, that one won him the $1 million along with Sabatini, those two guys. Where did Charlie Hoffman come from?
I mean, Charlie Hoffman is sort of this type of player where dude will just miss like 4 cuts in a row. And then it's like, oh, he's super talented, right? I mean, he's a guy who, when his ball striking gets going, kind of like an older version of like Russell Henley, a player another guy who just, when his ball striking gets going, he's going to contend. He doesn't, Hoffman doesn't putt well either, but when he gets in his zone like this, man, I mean, so, he's been struggling to find it all year, but, I wouldn't be shocked if you saw some continuation too. I mean, I'm not suggesting everyone goes out and plays them this week, but, keep an eye on him maybe in some of the weaker field events coming up. But, for him to get on him here, I think it was just more of just a shot in the dark, a 1% owned play. But, the upside with Hoffman, like I said, he's a veteran player who's played this venue lots. If the ball striking did come around, this is going to happen. It's just one of those GPP flyer plays that worked out. And it worked out perfectly because he had Sabs in there as well, who I thought was actually a pretty good bounce back candidate. And Sal's right, taking advantage of the price discount. So, yeah, it's an interesting lineup. It looks a little crazy on first look, but I think Hoffman is really the only like super flyer in there for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. It seems like we're in the same ballpark. I will say about Hoffman, we've seen him have the first round lead at the Masters, and we know that Nicklaus really modeled this course after Augusta and what they do there. Some of the holes are eerily similar. Some of them obviously are a little different, but still, no surprise, I guess, to see Hoffman play well. Who knows? All right, we'll go to the pro review now, where we're going to start off reviewing first mine and Alex Baker's. So what I do here is I just go over kind of the top 10 ownerships of each player, how many, some stats about the player pool and the like. So give that a second or two to get up on your screen. So first, Alex had Justin Rose at 28%. His highest owned guy missed the cut, but after that, no more missed cuts. Matt Kuchar, it looks like I spelled Kuchar wrong. Sorry about that. Patrick Reed, Gary Woodland, Ricky Fowler, Justin Thomas, and Hideki Matsuyama. I'm going to all get over 20% this week. All pretty good there. Maybe the one downfall was Colin Morikawa in at 9% versus the, of course, down 8% versus the field. His stats, he had 6 golfers over 20, 1 golfer missed the cut, and 105 total golfers in the field. So kind of standard we've seen from Alex to play a lot of guys below that 5% total own, just taking a lot of shots in the dark, like a Charlie Hoffman, for example. Sal, it looks like Alex getting a little closer, certainly with his main core getting 9 of 10 through the cut.
Yeah, I wonder how he ended up doing here because all the top end guys hit off. I wonder I don't know if you have it up still. Like, what was his, I guess, go-tos or maybe like around the 8% type of guys towards the bottom? I guess Jason Day was cheaper last week, so that's probably a bigger one. And it seems like he just went more balanced. So yeah, I think it looks fine here. I think Morikawa was a big one. I had like 14% Morikawa, and you had to have like over the field on him or just luck out with a single bullet to really move up off of that, just based off the scores that him and JT were putting up.
Yeah, let's see. Did have a couple of miscuts. Jim Furyk, he kind of went to a little bit. Aaron Wise, who was a terrible miscut. So maybe that held him back a little bit. He seemed to struggle in that high 7 range where I struggled last week. Well, first off, I don't even know. I've been hand building, and sometimes when I get in a rhythm of hand building, I just press the import button and I go to my last lineup that I did. So I see if I can get a little run. Well, I ended up with 62% of gross, and I think you guys can figure out who gross was. But my next two guys, Cantlay and Burns, were relatively good, but then I struggled. I had Byung-Hyun on, I had Brooks Koepka, I had Luke List. I was even up on the field on Morikawa, but still a really bad week when you have a lot of 3 of 6s. It doesn't matter how much Morikawa you have. You're just not going to get through, especially when high-owned Victor Hovland and Gary Woodland both had great weeks. I'm not going to be able to make up from that. I had 9 guys over 20. I had 4 missed the cut, though, and I had 61 total golfers. Last two that we're going to go over. Or I should say the last two. The next two. The guy that came in second place, the Human Cespedes is his DraftKings name. Justin McMahon is his real name. He had not only second, but I think he had 5th as well. So I really wanted to see how he did it. And he built way different than what we've seen from anybody else that we've reviewed here. He took the very aggressive approach. He went with 80% Kevin Stroman, and he did Max Enter. 80% Stroman, 77% Woodland, 75% Cantlay, 73% Max Homa, who is his only missed cut in the top 10. But as you can see, he had 40% of Charlie Hoffman, 33% Morikawa, Patrick Reed, Justin Thomas, Joaquin Niemann, and Hadley ended up as top 10. But Sal, what do you make of this strategy for MME? I mean, it's bold, and it certainly shows what happens when you hit.
Yeah, it's all about like your expectations at that point, or really your risk tolerance. Like I've done this before. I do this a lot in 20 max. I've done it in 150, and I can't stomach like the 2 or 3 weeks in a row when you lose everything. When like a Max Homa 73%, it knocks it off. But yeah, I might reach out to him after this and figure out what got him onto Hoffman, because that's a huge stance to be like 60 times the field on a guy who ends up in a winning lineup, almost pops off for 100 points. Had a huge weekend, Hoffman. I think he went 9 under, really hot with the putter.
He shot 4 over, I think, on day one, if I'm not, or 2 over, I think. 2 over, 4 under is how he got through the cut.
Yeah, he finished on Sunday 5 under, and he was like up there on the weekend, like top 5 in putting overall. I actually think he might have been like top 3 in putting, but yeah, he had a great weekend. And yeah, I like this strategy. It just depends on your risk tolerance. Like, I'm fine. This weekend I had 89 golfers in 150s. I'm usually right around that 90 mark. But if you want to get like Bryson a couple weeks back, I think you might have gone 100% or close to it. If you want to get that much of a guy, you're going to cut like 30 players in your pool. So it quickly starts to come down. So yeah, I think this strategy is fine. It's all about your risk tolerance. And yeah, if you can hit on 1 or 2 of those guys, obviously having the guys who win in there too helps. Yeah, I think the strategy is totally fine.
Yeah, Geoff, 33 total golfers for Justin there. That is trending towards one of the lowest that I've seen since reviewing this type of stuff. What do you make of it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't mind this strategy, although it's even like a little bit riskier than I would take whenever I've done this. And like, I don't do the max entry anymore. So if, just to get that out of the way, but when I did, I would take aggressive lines like this too, but this is even aggressive. This would even be aggressive for me, like, especially with the Hoffman play. I mean, the dude was going to be so low. And so either he just had a read on it or just felt really good about it for whatever reason, which I understand. When you do feel that good about it, you should go overweight. And I mean, maybe he went like super overweight, but that you got to take advantage of it. If you think there's something there that, he's just in a really good spot for top 20 at that low ownership. Yep. That's how you get really big weeks. You give yourself these players a shot to get themselves in the right lineups. So, again, like, having 4 players at 70% owned or whatever, over 70% owned, that probably wouldn't be as aggressive as I would take, but he probably just felt really good about that group of players and said, why not? So, I don't know, maybe it's his long-term strategy too. And that's fine. look, the millionaire maker is what it is, right? It's kind of win or go home. Like it's win or you just have like a kind of meh week.
Yep.
This is the way you give yourself a best shot at the $1 million, in my opinion. So it sounds bold, sounds extreme, but I kind of like this ownership levels too.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see. We'll chronicle him next week too, just to see if he changes it up or if this is more of a long-term strategy that he builds on and it's just how aggressive he gets. All right, so let's switch total gears and go into the single entry stuff. And we're gonna talk about Sal's lineup first. Sal had put together a really nice lineup last week, easily getting through the cut, only missing Matthew Neesmith. But built around Justin Thomas, Patrick Cantlay. We talked about a Stars to Scrubs approach, how it worked at the Rocket Mortgage. It pretty much worked here for the most part. You found the value in Sabatini. We talked about how he could have been a little higher owned in the single entry. He was, but you differentiated with Neesmith and Sabatini, even though Neesmith missed the cut. Ian Poulter had a great putting week, but I was really surprised him coming in at 10%, weren't you?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting. I guess in that range, he did stand out to me the most, especially like Scotty Scheffler's price drop, but he was just, he had the -7, shot 7 under on the Friday before, but still people were hesitant to go to him, and probably for good reason now looking back at it. But he was the one guy who stood out in that range. Poulter's had a decent amount of playing this year, and he's been consistent. And yeah, he just had a hot putter. I think he was second in the field in putting. I think they said on the broadcast Sunday he led the entire field in overall putt distance made, like 435. So yeah, he for the entire tournament, he just got really hot. I still was fine to see him in single digits. It's rare that like guys below 75 or right around that $7,500 price tag are going to touch like a 10 to 15 range. So I was okay where I saw him. I knew Cantlay was just going to be highly owned. I thought JT in higher stakes was going to be like normal JT ownership. Like I was expecting like 16 to 20% ownership, and he came in at single digits. So that's when I really started to feel good about it. And then, yeah, Naismith played well on Thursday. Actually was feeling really good about this lineup Thursday. Everybody went out. Naismith was last to go out, and he ended up shooting like he started like bogey, par bogey, and I knew he was done. But yeah, the rest of them had just solid rounds all the way across. It wasn't even a sweat for really any of the other guys. Cantlay eagled like 14 or 15, and then that kind of ended his sweat.
Yeah, I think it was a really well put together lineup. As we switch over to mine, I was happy when the ownership's printed. I talked about on the Wednesday show with Jazz Raz about trying to use Koepka, Schauffele, who I knew were going to be the lowest owned guys of the studs up top in the Millie Maker. I said I want to use them in the single entry because they come even lower owned. So I got a 24 combined ownership on them, which was less than Cantlay. It was exactly what I was looking for. But as you mentioned with Matthew Neesmith, I was watching Koepka early on Thursday morning, and it looked bad from the exact get-go. So that screwed me right away. I was happy, however, on the contrary, about Luke List. Shot 3 under on day one. He looked really good. Then all of a sudden, he just tanked. I don't even know what happened. Shot 7 over on Friday, so he missed the cut. My other 4 guys that ended up making it through were fine. If I had found 2 other guys to make it through, it would have cashed easily. So that's just the way that cookie crumbles. Geoff, looks like you got 3 guys through and almost beat me. So it looks like your core of Matsuyama, Fowler, Henley was real good, but you fell into the Jordan Spieth trap as I did, as we chronicled. And the Benny On, man, that was the biggest roller coaster cut sweat that I've had this year, or at least since the hiatus has come back. The rain weather delay killed both your guys, and it did for me in another lineup where I had Morikawa and Sam Burns. Geoff, talk about that a little bit, what travails you went through during that weather delay.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, I feel like I probably got a little bit fancy play going too overweight on Jordan Spieth last week. And look, like I said, sometimes you take your lumps, but, not getting a piece of a guy like Morikawa or Hovland, probably a mistake. But, at the same time, like you said, the weather delay, I mean, there was a point in round 2 where this lineup was trending for a 6-6. I mean, Ann was at -2, Spieth was at -3, yep. And Cauley hadn't started the round at -1. Like, for Spieth to come back and play the last 5 holes in 3 over par, and and like chipping from the fringe for like a double bogey, it was ridiculous. So, and then Benny On obviously fell apart after the weather delay too. I feel like if that weather delay doesn't happen, probably at least one of these guys gets through, maybe both. So I did, yeah. I'm not going to blame it all on the weather. Obviously, like I said, I'm looking back. I just felt like the Muirfield playing easier. It might have just led to a little bit of shift with some of these guys coming on, like Spieth and Fowler, maybe outperforming some of the sort of more trending golfers. But again, it's a little bit of fancy play syndrome. But I like it. There was a point Friday where this looked pretty solid to get maybe at least 5 and probably 6 through. So definitely at least like the Henley play. 7,300. He actually saved my week a little bit in betting. He ended up in the top 8. So that was good. I feel good about that. I think Ricky was fine as well. Hideki.
Hideki was even fine. Yeah, Hideki was even fine.
Hideki's okay, but I feel like still, with his game just isn't there. Like it's just not at the level of these other guys yet. So it's a little bit of an overpayment, but it's fine. This lineup it looks worse than it actually was, but at the same time, I'm not super happy with how I went about it. So it is what it is.
Well, good thing that you get another chance at this golf course this week as we transition into the Memorial here. But before we do, if you guys are not an Awesemo Plus member, it is a great time to do so. We got this week, obviously, Tiger Woods is back. We've got the biggest prize pools across the DFS industry that we have seen since the return, including a $3 million first place millionaire maker on DraftKings. So if you are not a member, it is a great time to join with a Golf Weekly Pass. It's for $8.95. You get full access to Awesemo's leading golfer projections, ownership projections, top golfer tool, which Alex and I made a video on last week. So if you haven't used that, check it out. And so much more. There's never a better time for PGA DFS. So get in the game and step on the course today. All right, let's go into our fourth topic. Tiger is back. My notion of, oh my God, he's not going to play if there's no fans, thankfully is so dead wrong that I brought up last week to you guys. It's the first time we've seen him in 5 months. I'll say my other 2 quick things before I get your guys' thoughts on Tiger. Only 3 of the top 20 in the world aren't here. Adam Scott is non-existent to the world. I don't know if he exists anymore. Ty Hatton has played. He's not playing this week. Maybe he's heading home for the Betfred. I'm not sure. And the last one is Tommy Fleetwood, who has made some waves in the tabloids, so I know he's living at least. But first time we've seen Tiger in 5 months, Geoff. What do you make? Well, I shouldn't say we saw him play against Tom Brady. But what do you make of Tiger coming out first time in 5 months?
I mean, Tiger is an interesting player because he used to do this early in his career where he'd take like the first 3 events off anyways, and then just come back and play well at Torrey Pines, another course where he just loves. So I'm not too worried about him not having played that much lately. I mean, he's just so good in preparation. I think most players, you have a little bit of worry, but and maybe Tiger Woods, again, being a little bit older now and his body needs to get going a bit, you worry a little bit more. But I think the biggest thing about him is at 9K and DraftKings pricing, especially. I mean, it's very much in play. I mean, I was even surprised his odds got up to, plus 2,800, whatever they were at. So I'm not saying I necessarily like him as a betting, but from a DraftKings perspective, he's T23, T9 here the last couple of years. Obviously, he's a 5-time winner here, but, as he's been playing himself back into kind of more elite form, I mean, he's still done well here. So I'm not super bullish to the point where I'm going to probably bet on him. But, from a DraftKings perspective, to get him at 9K, I feel pretty safe about him, at least making the cut and probably sneaking to the top 25 at the very least, like I said. So,
yeah. Sal, how about you?
Yeah, I don't really worry too much about Tiger having off. Like normally we see him taking off like a month or 2 and it's just normal. 5 months is a huge difference, but for anybody but Tiger, it's probably a bigger concern. But you just know that mentality wise, at that point, he's working on his game. He's fine. I guess he had a little bit of the competition with the charity event, but you know that he just knows and thrives under competition. So if anything, I'm not too worried about that. The last time that you saw him, I think he lost might have been his career high, 8 strokes with the putter. So that's nothing to really look at. He's been fine every other time that he just kind of pops up over the last year, winning the Zozo, obviously the Masters last year. So if anything, he's fully healthy now, or at least everything that indicates it, that he is fully healthy. So yeah, I'm excited. I think that what DraftKings has done, a lot of books have done with their pricing on him is smart. And what DraftKings did with his salary is smart, in my opinion. A lot of eyes on golf, and it's just really easy to get some shares and some wagers on Tiger this week.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, Sal, I think it was you this morning, if I'm not mistaken, saw Tiger at 40-1, which I actually thought was a pretty good price. I mean,
I saw him at 30-1. It was Bet365. So Odds Checker does like a bunch of the offshore books. Some like when DraftKings and FanDuel go up, they don't go up to like 9, 10 a.m. on Mondays, but he was on 30 to 1 on 2 sites and a lot of 28 to 1s. Those got bet down to like 25 pretty quickly.
Yeah, I figured. All right, one last thing on the Memorial. It was supposed to be 120 golfers. That's what it always typically is, top 65 and cuts beat the tie. However, when DraftKings printed their player pool and when I looked at the field last night, there's 133. I believe that's due to COVID. They're just increasing the field size for this week. So just wanted to make that note there. If you did not play last week and you do not know about Muirfield Village, we're going to move on to our next topic here, the changes to Muirfield. I'll quickly just run through what the course sets up as. It's a Jack Nicklaus design. It's a par 72, roughly around 7,400 yards. There's 13 water hazards that are definitely in play, 78 bunkers that are certainly in play. We have plenty of history here. Of course, we've been playing at Memorial and Muirfield Village for quite some time. 4 par 5s, 4 in par 3s, and then 10 par 4s. But there were some additions made to the course that definitely made it harder, Sal. We got some stats from last week. Why don't you tell us about those?
Yeah, so a couple of big additions. The main one was just distance on 3 of the holes. They changed some things for this week. They changed the rough and just the green speeds are going to be changing for this coming into this week. But they added some distance on a par 3 and 2 of the par 5s. What ended up happening was that you saw it was just harder for driving accuracy. So driving accuracy heading into this week, I'm personally going to weight a little bit higher. When you just look at some of the top finishers last week, same things for greens and regulations. It just made this course, even though the scores weren't kind of entailing it the first 2 days, after Thursday it definitely did. It just made it a little bit more difficult if you were not hitting the fairways and you had to rely on scrambling. So those are some things to kind of keep in mind. Maybe wait a little bit more. Some of that driving accuracy, definitely around the green play, are things that I'm going to look at a little bit more heading into this week compared to when I was looking at last week.
Yeah, you mentioned 58% of the fairways hit over the last week. I mean, that's a significant drop from the previous year, which was like near 70. Greens and regulation was down, scrambling was down. So all the way harder, even though the rough length and the green speeds were down. So that's probably going to make it even harder for this week, Geoff. We've got some guys that are coming in, like Rory, who's played decently here. But what do you think who do you think the changes are going to benefit the most going into this week?
Yeah, no, Sal brought up kind of the point I was going to make too about just the driving accuracy. That, like the top 3 players in the playoffs, they were all top 10 in strokes gained off the tee, and it's not just power. Morikawa was only 20th in driving distance, but very good in driving accuracy. All of those guys, even JT, who's kind of a sprayer sometimes off the tee. So I think it's going to come more into play. I think it favors good drivers of the golf ball. I think it favors a guy like maybe Schauffele, who's typically really long and straight. I think you might see that come into play a little bit more than last year's, where it's brought, previous years have brought more players like Matt Kuchar into the mix because the fairways have been easier to hit. If that's not going to be the case and the ref is going to be up, I think it's just going to play a little bit harder and more to the strengths of these players who typically do well in like US Opens, things like that. So kind of the same mentality. I'm going to, limit a couple of players off my list that I kind of had marked for the first week and take it from there. But I just would expect a little less greens and regulation being hit with the rough up and the greens faster. So.
Yeah, for sure. I think that you're going to find the greens to be much more difficult. I mean, when you go from an 11 on the stip meter to a 13, what that just means is 2 feet of extra rollout of almost every cut, especially the downhill ones. So those 3-footers turn into 5-footers, those 5 turn into 7, and it's a lot different. The one thing I wanted to make note is you got to be crafty around the greens. You have to possess some type of short game skill unless you're going to hit 80+% of your greens, which Morikawa was really close to. But he matched the field. When he missed the green, he matched the field around the green. So he didn't lose strokes there. I think that was really important. You saw Viktor Hovland not get in the playoff and really fall behind those guys because of his around the green work last week. So I think that's certainly vitally important. So as we turn our attention, we're going to go into our first clicks. But before we do, of course, we're giving away a ton of free Awesemo projections on our Instagram handle. So if you don't follow us on Instagram, check it out. Awesemo_com is the handle. And also be sure to check out the PGA Hub where we put all of our great content, including this and so much more, in one convenient place. All you got to do is scroll up to the PGA on our main page and find the PGA Content Hub. So check that out there. So our first clicks this week, I have written down here, because this is definitely the first time I've seen it. And the top 20 bet looks intriguing as well. Again, I don't think he's going to do it, but I'm definitely intrigued at Spieth to 80 to 1. It's the first time I've seen an 80 number printed on Jordan Spieth, even through all of this time, which, he's had one top 5 since his first round lead at Augusta in 2018. So it's ridiculous. But 81 seems intriguing. Sal, what is your first clicks of the week?
Yeah, so my first clicks of the week ended up going towards just going down the draft board. Jon Rahm at 22 to 1 is the first one that I ended up placing, but probably the one that I ended up liking the most right when I saw it ended up getting a 40 to 1 number on Ricky. So I went 40 to 1 on Ricky. I think he's still probably 40 to 1 in most spots, 35 in a lot of them. Just the way that his game's trending right now. The putter has been getting back to what it was. There was a little bit of a scare for a while before the break and coming out of it. That's been fine. But really the approach and tee to green, when those things click for Ricky, and they have for really the last 2 to 3 events he's been in, and some of his best finishing places that we've seen in a while, I like that. In this type of an atmosphere, I think you can thrive on it, especially if the around the green and putter stay heading into this week. So Ricky, I'm on. So I ended up betting Ricky, Rahm, Tiger at 30 to 1, really because of the number. And I wanted something of Tiger, especially if he becomes very popular, which I think he probably will be. Those are some bets I've placed so far. Some other really good numbers. This is just a major field, so we're back to some good numbers after 2 weeks of having some crappy boards.
Yep. Geoff, how about you? What are your first clicks this week?
So, Rahm at 22 was very intriguing for me. I think Ricky was really good off the tee, so I might go there too. But The first guy I clicked was Tony Finau at 66 to 1, coming off a miscut. Just don't see him at that price very often. I was kind of expecting him just to be in his regular 45, maybe 50 range. So I took that. He's actually got a pretty underrated record at Memorial. Obviously, he's coming off that, he shot a 59 on social media and stuff like that. That's great and all. I mean, it's good to know he's in form. That's not really why I did it. It's more just, you're getting a player who, you just don't see at this price very often. And he's played okay in spots since the break. His ball striking has been a little bit all over the place. But look, we saw Webb Simpson miss a cut, come back, put it all together. We saw Dustin Johnson do the same thing. I don't think there's any reason why Tony Finau can't do it. And again, the course is going to play a little bit tougher. Great. That's great for Finau. I mean, the tougher the course, the better, quite frankly. It's the guy who flashes in U.S. Opens and majors. So I like that price on him. It's an each way for me to the top 8. So it's not just a win or go home kind of thing, especially at 66 to 1, you're getting good value. But that was my first click.
Yeah, I like them all. I think the reasoning is good. Obviously, my reasoning is terrible, so we need to have some balance up here.
I couldn't go back and click Jordan Spieth this week. I was like, wow, 80 to 1, but I'm still not doing it. I might do it later in the week, but I couldn't do it today. I had to at least give a day to get the bad taste out of my mouth from last week. And look, again, apologies for me for bringing him up last week, because it wasn't me. It wasn't Jason last week. It was me who brought him up. So again,
and somebody just mentioned to us that on DraftKings he's already up to 90 to 1. So definitely gonna maybe wait longer and you'll get it even better. So top 20 values as we move into our next topic here. I finally saw this guy make a cut, and I think that the hard golf course even makes it better for him. Is off the tee improved. 14 to 1 Andrew Putnam for a top 20. All three of us nailed our picks in here last week. Me with Sam Burns. Sal said, hey, look, Justin Thomas at minus 140. If he makes the cut, he's definitely in it. Sal nailed it there. And then, Geoff, you nailed the Russell Henley. So I'm going to let you go first again. Russell Henley was a great call. Let's see if you're going right back there or to somebody else.
Well, Henley's on the field this week.
Oh, he's on the field. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, because it's the Invitational, so they got different. I know. I thought he was too this morning. I'm like,
too bad.
Henley. But it's because it's an Invitational, so the qualifications are, Russ still doesn't have a ton of FedEx points. So he'll be getting close to these qualifications soon, though. But for me, it's Shane Lowry. Again, I'm not sure what his exact top 20 or whatever price is, but he's 125 to 1 in the outrights. It should lead you to a pretty good price in the top 20, 4 to 1-ish, probably, maybe even better. He struck his irons very well last week. His only fault was just being a little bit inaccurate off the tee, but he was good in that area of his last 4 events. So Shane Lowry is just a quality player. He's starting to show some real form after 4 starts. And I think he can top 20 in this field, if he keeps that approach up and give him another week on these greens. So I actually really like that price you're getting for him.
Yep. Agree. Sal, who's your top 20 value for the week?
Yeah, I'm going to go to top 20. I'm concerned about how the course sets up for him. We didn't get to see him last week, but Doc Redman at plus 500. So The only issue for me is just around the green play for Edmund is something that's concerning, but it's really just the value that you're getting in him. We saw him right before the break being very popular in DraftKings, but just in general, the game for approach play, tee to green is clicking as good as it can. First time in a while that we saw him gain strokes putting when he was at Rocket Mortgage. Pretty much has been flirting with 3 top 20s. He's had 2 21st place finishes and an 11th in his last 3 events. So he's back in the field this week. Again, around the green's the only thing that might concern me, but it's nothing catastrophic for him. So Doc Redman at plus 500 is the first one that I have a bet on right now. Other than that, I'll probably look towards the top a little bit at some of those shorter plus money odds.
I think that sounds pretty good. And of course, always good to look at the matchups as well. And if you're interested in matchup betting, I've been doing a 3-ball video that I put out Wednesday mornings. So take a look at that for a couple of more bet ideas. And now we're going to transition to our DFS and the first reactions. And I will say, I got to be honest, not surprised at my next statement because of the size of the player, size of the millionaire maker at 3 million. They've got to bring in casuals. They've got to make it relatively easy for people to make lineups to fill it. I was a little surprised at how soft it was. I thought they'd at least go 11-3 on the high side, whether it be Bryson or JT. And I felt like they should put 7 or 8 guys above 10,000. It's only 5, and they only go to 11-1. So that was just my first thought, maybe a little soft. I don't mind. It doesn't bother me. That was my first thought. Sal, we'll go to you first on that.
Yeah, I thought right away when you see that Bryson's 11,100 in this type of a field, it's just naturally softer pricing. I think the 8K range, some of my first thoughts were that there's maybe like a lot of landmines in that range, kind of guys whose games are a little bit all over the place for one reason or another. But yeah, the pricing is soft. It's going to generally just lend to easily building balance. I think it's smart that they did this if they're trying to capture fans, especially what they did with Tiger's price and what they're doing just in general. You can play anybody you want. It basically comes down to, which is normally it balances the playing field a little bit, I guess, in like those single entry 3 maxes. So everybody just looks like a good value as I went through it from like 8K to all the way up to Bryson. So it just comes down to just really getting unique within those lineups and really looking at what ownership is, because when everybody's this cheap, the value's great on them. So if one guy's 32% on compared to a guy who's 20%, it just makes it that much easier to bounce off.
Yep. Geoff, similar thoughts on your side? I mean, relatively soft pricing or?
Oh, yeah, no, I think the pricing is really soft this week. It's just basically like a major, which is fine. I mean, I think it's kind of fun when you get it this week. And I don't know, with Tiger back and everything, I think Sal made this point at the start, it lets people get a piece of him easier. And I think it's just going to help, a few more people get a few more lineups in, which is good for DFS. As far as at the top, I mean, they're finally making Rory to the point where I think he's actually going to be a good play this week. At 10-7, he's only the 3rd most expensive. Obviously Justin Thomas, Bryson now ahead of him. A good play from the perspective of, just you're still going to get the lower ownership on him because he's sandwiched between those guys, and he could still be the lowest owned of that group. So I'm interested there. Obviously, it definitely kind of stuck out to me that I know a couple people were talking about pricing and whether I think most people still thought he'd be at the top, but for him to come in at 3rd, well under 11K now, that kind of stuck out to me the most.
Yeah, for sure. And on that same subject of salary dumps, let's move on to our next little section here and talk about that for a second, because we're now at a point of Jon Rahm, $1,600 cheaper than he was last week. He shot 7 under on Sunday, so obviously he can do it here. We know he can. I'm intrigued. The last time that we saw Jon Rahm in the 9,000s, it's been a long time. I recall back at the Farmers when he won there, he was in this price range and low owned. So if the ownership that was with him last week was like 10%, follows him again this week. Really intriguing. Brooks Koepka also 1,300 down. Xander Schauffele 1,000 down. Spieth and Leishman 900 down, and Cantlay and Rose 800 down. So Geoff, any of those guys interest you because of the price dump, or just interest you without that?
No, I love Rahm this week, man. I mean, the thing about Rahm is too, he hasn't been in great form, but he's always been a player who just like will kind of just simmer along, and then he'll just fire with his irons. And last week in the final round, what did he gain? Like 5 strokes of his irons in the last round. I think this is just too quality a player not to figure it out. And for him to get discounted now, even if he comes in at higher ownership, like, there's Schauffele in the range, Koepka, Tiger. Like he's probably not even going to be the highest player in this range, which is great. This is an all and kind of week for me on Jon Rahm, to be honest. I mean, the salary dump, the soft pricing with him grouped in with a lot of other elite golfers. And I do like Schauffele in this range. I was surprised to see him come down. But you can play like 2, maybe even 3 of these guys together, which just makes this so much better. I will have high exposure to probably 3 of these guys in that 9K range. Love it. Definitely, I think when it comes to more GPPs, and again, you're looking for just a lower ownership. I mean, the Leishman Spieths of the world definitely should be in play, and you're gonna have to think about it. But I think your bread and butter should be in this 9K range.
Yeah, Sal, the biggest salary bump was Morikawa. Obviously, he's getting tons of love at $10,000, priced above all the guys we just mentioned, and he gets $800. He's the only significant one. So, are you heading to the dump side, or are you going to head to the upside with Morikawa?
Yeah, I would assume that I came in at like 15% last week. I would assume that I'd probably be just looking at some early stuff, like 10 to 15% on him. Like, I don't think it's somewhere where I want to completely fade him. Just like you get a higher price point in the betting market, you get a worse bet. So that's a place where I'd rather fade him. Yeah, the price point's going to come up a couple $100. It's nothing dramatic. I do think the 9K range early on looks like the best range overall. And yeah, I kind of echo some of the statements on Rahm. I still want to adjust some things heading into this week, but Rahm is my number one play by far. Just looking at it, if I tweak some of the stuff that we're talking about with greens regulations and accuracy from my stuff last week, Rahm pops off. And I think a lot of people see that, but you have to remember, Tiger's down here. Hovland, for the people who've been playing the last couple of weeks, are going to remember him popping off. Cantley's in this range. Webb's won twice. It's going to be hard for Rahm or any of these guys to really be like 30% owned. So if Rahm doesn't cross like 25%, I'm going to have that much or more of him. It'll be interesting to see. He seems like the play that is probably the biggest difference in a positive way from maybe like 15% to 18% owned in a Millie Maker, but then higher stakes, he comes in at like 30%. That can be the type of play like that, which you'll have to wait it when it comes to that.
Yeah, for sure. And I did want to mention one thing. I forgot to mention in the course portion of this. The par 4 14th hole, they played it this past week, which I loved, and I'm sure the players did too, as a drivable par 4. We saw shots like Hovland put it to 3 feet. We saw plenty of other guys drive the green. A lot of fun. I don't think we're going to get that again this week. I think it'll go back to the normal 370-yarder, which means Bryson might be the only guy to be able to drive it. So it's not
which kind of makes it interesting on its own, right, Jason? To see if Bryson can do it, right? So
if Bryson's the only one that can do it, it does make Bryson even more intriguing, who gets the highest price here this week, or maybe even for showdown purposes, maybe really looking at Bryson because we know he can have an eagle or two in a round. It's definitely interesting. Plus his price is a little bit lower. All right, so let's move on to the mid range. We've got Rose and Koepka coming off of the miscut. Then we've got Gary Woodland and crazy good putting. Then we got other stars like Danny Berger, Tony Finau, Tiger Woods returning to the course, Matt Fitzpatrick maintaining his price. What were the things that stuck out to you here, Geoff, in this 9-8K range?
Yeah, so this range, I'm definitely going to be more picky. I mean, obviously, I kind of like Finau this week, and 8,300. I'll take that like under Ants or under Reed. Again, it's just a course that's probably going to play a little bit tougher than last week, which I like. This is where I think you should be loading up on Tony Finau rather than Birdie Fest, where you're not sure he can just get out putted. If he sprays a little bit too much off the tee, he'll get in trouble. So I think that could still happen at Memorial, but he's just generally better at these tougher courses. That was the guy that sticks out to me. I think Some JM is very interesting bounce back candidate. He's up to like 70, 80 to 1 in the odds as well. So 8,200, that is a player I could see, in GPPs getting there. Answer is, I love me some Answer. I think that in this range, I would probably take him over Woodland and Reed. Look, it's early in the week, so like I'm not committing to this, but this course, again, we're talking fairways and greens, tougher. Answer is a player who likes tougher golf courses. He's generally said that. There was a bit of a wrist issue at the Travelers, like in the final round, where he said he hurt his wrist, and that's kind of why he didn't play so well to finish. But it's been 2 weeks. There's been no note, and he's back in the field. I imagine he wouldn't be playing if he wasn't healthy, at least healthy enough to play 4 rounds. So it is something to think about, and I want to drop that out there. But that's probably where I would go in the mid-range. Berger, I like Ricky. Obviously, I don't want to talk about every golfer here, but Ricky I still feel like Ricky's maybe a little bit overpriced. So
It's definitely, I mean, he had a good week last week, but again, we don't have half the golfers that we have playing now. So even if he did come in the top, I don't know if he snuck into the top 10. I can't remember. I think he did.
He actually kind of failed. Like his back nine was bad on Sunday. It was T22. So
he did ended up falling a bit down. Yeah, I saw him playing okay in the front nine. Had a couple of eagles. Again, he was very good off the tee, as you guys mentioned earlier. So I don't mind it. But you mentioned Abe Answer, Geoff. Sal, he was the next guy I had written down with Paul Casey and Doc Redman, who are now back on the course. They're mixed in with a bunch of guys who missed the cut last week. Spieth, Hanan, Leishman, Matt Wolff, Scotty Scheffler, Joel Damon. Are you more interested? Oh, and two more guys, Ian Poulter and Billy Horschel, who had big weeks last week. Of all those guys, Abe Answer's been real hot. Poulter, Horschel last week, bunch of miscuts. Who are you more likely to go back out of all of them?
Yeah, so looking at all these guys right now, out of all the guys who missed it and the guys that are just new into the field, it's probably... It honestly probably is Answer just based on where he's playing, price point that you probably get on him. These guys coming back in, I'm more interested in between Finau and Answer. Right now, Brooks, the range that he's in, probably wouldn't go there. And I want to play Justin Rose just because I don't think many people will, but you don't get that great of a salary difference on him. And the game, like when you're trying to look at recent form, like since the break or like the last 2 or 3 events, and try and take something away from it in a positive light, there's not many things to try and take away, not even rounds that you can like point to. So it's really tough to try and go there when there's so many better pieces around them, just generally in the 8K range. Ricky and Daniel Berger up top probably stand out. Woodland is very polarizing, as he has been, but he led the field in off the tee play, I believe, at least when he finished up on Thursday to start. And then he gained 7 strokes with the putter, barely made the cut, finishes top 5. But if that putter goes a little bit, he doesn't make the cut. So his game is still kind of leaky, I think. So, yeah, it's a tough 8K range. I said earlier, I think there's a lot of landmines here. I think that's what it was last week too. Sanjay is similar to Woodland in that you've had 4 straight events losing on approach, 3 out of 4 losing with the putter, which are both uncharacteristic. I think for Sanjay, I'm going to just hedge it, get him either at 80 to 1 in the betting market, 70 to 1, or end up going a decent amount on him in DraftKings, depending on what ownership is. But I'll have some piece of him. It's just that right now I think I'm losing confidence in the game. Similar to how I was with Morikawa last week, and then he goes out of win. So we'll see.
Yeah. So Sanjay is going to win this week is basically what you're telling me.
Yeah, so take the 80 to 1.
Yeah, you mentioned Woodland's game has some leaks in it, right? That was something that I mentioned with Patrick Reed last week on this show that, hey, look, he's got that top 10 at Chuck Schwab. I know he's a good scorer, but at 10-5, he's not Bryson DeChambeau right now. He's not ball striking well. No, Patrick Reed had a little bit of a bounce back week. Ball striking looked good the first 2 rounds, and now the putter kind of went. So let's see if he fixes that this week.
All right, the other thing I'll just add in. Yeah, I'll just add in about Patrick Reed. I've been like trying to track him like for the past year. When he loses with the putter, what happens? It's like 90% of the time he misses the cut, and then he'll finish like 50th. But this week he finished like T38 or T39, and he lost like the most strokes he's lost with the putter this year, 1.7. So that's encouraging that other pieces, the around the green, other pieces of the game are clicking. So if you see like that type of a floor almost for him coming, yeah, it could be a good time to jump on.
For sure. So before we get out, we always give a couple of bombs. So Geoff, I'll let you throw out a name or two. I've already thrown out Andrew Putnam as my name. He finally made a cut. I think the course makes it harder. I have a propensity to play him. The guys that are with me on my Wednesday night shows, they know that I'm a sucker for him. And then we have a question also. So Geoff, I'm going to turn it to you for the bombs, and then I want you to talk about Kevin Streelman, who just did it again at Memorial, and of course he likes. Can he do it again this week? And another bomb or two.
Okay, I mean my first bomb would be Lowry. He's over 100 to 1. You can probably get him at 125 to 1. That's I know it's not like a super low play. I'll be honest. I've been really struggling to find. Usually I'm really good at finding the garbage guys I like right away, but for me right now, I'm probably going to venture to some of these Euro Tour players like Bestenhut or Wiesberger again, just because I'm playing the talent. You know, Wiesberger is still like a top 50 player in the world world golf rankings, and it's not like I'm expecting him to win, but that's probably where I would go in this field. I just don't, with all the talent up top. I mean, there's just no one else that really sticks out to me. So Lowry, Wiesberger, and I might go back to like a Bestenhut as well for my bombs this week.
Yeah, so I'm seeing a few names in chat being thrown out here. Nick Taylor, Henrik Norlander, Ches Reavie, who did pop up a little bit last week, Jason Duffner. Any of those names interest you, or maybe one of your favorite bombs on the week?
Yeah, so in terms of the betting market, like for some of these guys to just outright win it, it's tough in this field. So I'd probably go more top 10, top 5s. first round leader type things like Mav McNeely's probably somebody I'll bet first round leader. Guys like Lonzo, I usually put like top 20 bets on just because if they do anything with the putter, they're going to be right there. Usually it's either like a missed cut or a top 30. So nothing, I haven't placed anything right now on anything bomb wise. The closest that I guess to a bomb 125 in the 100 range, Kevin Na, you're getting a discount because of the back, withdrew, and it is sketchy. Like I played him and bet him when he withdrew, and he literally put on Instagram that morning, hope the back holds up, with like fingers crossed. So you're getting mixed signals from him. You don't know what to even expect at that point. I kept everything in, wrote it on him. He pulls out on Friday. So, but he would probably be in that maybe 70, 80 to 1 range if he was fully healthy, if he didn't withdraw. So at least that's how I'm taking it. So 125 to 1. I haven't bet any of those yet. That's the first one that I kind of at least starred down in the 100 plus range. And then just like 7K guys, I really like Harrising his price point on DraftKings. 7,300. I think he sets up well. And if you're just looking at like his betting odds open 90 to 1, everybody in that range is like 110, 120. So I think it's just a built-in discount on him.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. So that does it. So for our show today, the PGA DFS First Look Show for the Memorial. And of course, as I do at the end of every show, I ask for some likes. If you could like the video to make sure that we know we are giving the information that you guys want to hear. And of course, if you want to hear any other type of information on this show, feel free to reach out to me either via Slack if you're an Awesemo Plus member, or of course through Twitter. All of our Twitter handles are up there. Feel free to reach out to us there. Of course, if you're looking for more, we've got Ben Raza and Timothy Frank on the PGA DFS Strategy Show tomorrow at 2:30. They go up and down the lineups, and it's a great show. They have a lot of fun with it as well. Tim brings some great comedy as well. They're a great team. So until next time, everybody, thanks for coming by the PGA DFS First Look Show, and we'll see you on the other side.